workshop session. And I would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Bartlett.
Here.
Cook. Here. Hannett. Henry.
Here.
Odenettle.
Here.
Ruben DeSellis. Here. Scott.
Here.
Speed. Watts.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Mayor Ezra.
Here.
City Attorney Booth.
Here.
Thanks. Item number 1 under the mayor's report is to update regarding the community revitalization plan by the Illinois Housing Development Authority. And Brian, would you like to step up with the gentleman? And I'd love to. We have folks from...
So this is Christopher Walton from the Illinois Housing Development Authority. You know, we've discussed the comprehensive plan and redoing our comprehensive plan for a while now. And we did a community revitalization plan. It's been a year and a half, but this would be the housing portion of the next comprehensive plan. And there's some other things that this will help with, and we'll discuss some of that after Chris talks.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks.
Mayor, council members, thank you for having me here today. What you see before you is just a brief presentation that I had put together to go over some of the details of the community needs assessment, which is the community revitalization housing plan. I'm going to call it the CR plan because community revitalization is such a mouthful. It just takes too long to say. So this is not the full thing. The full thing is done pending some edits to, grammar and things like that. And that will be available shortly after. So included in this, if you flip to that very first page, you see that there are services, and these are all the services that my counterpart, Megan Cuneo and Brian, worked really hard on. We did a lot of community outreach. There was community stakeholders involved, development resources, a housing stock survey, the housing needs assessment, which is the final overall plan, the community needs assessment, which was a survey that went out via the internet, community planning documentation, so some past plans, how to connect everything together, and then the revitalization toolkit and work plan, as well as a funding strategy. So those are all of the things that you will find in the final document, which again is ready to go pending a few edits to different spelling, grammar, and things like that. So included in this, again, you have a market analysis, right? So these are some of the demographics that the study was able to find. Some population change in the census tracts that makes up Jacksonville. You'll see there are a couple of other cities. These are similar cities, comparison cities. And then you'll see that Jacksonville as a whole, the county, and compare it all to the state. So I won't go through everything all that, together for the sake of time, but definitely feel free to take a look at that pretty closely. On the next page, there are housing demographics. What is the median household income, labor force participation rate, unemployment rate, et cetera. Take a look at those. That data, really important stuff that really went into the study of the housing in Jacksonville. There are household demographics, so how many households are in Jacksonville, what is the average household size, and there's going to be a lot more data involved in that final document. So as we go on to the community needs assessment survey, these are just some of the examples of what the residents in Jacksonville had to say during the community needs assessment survey that went out. Housing in the community, is it in good condition? Is it available for elderly? Does it offer options that suit a variety of lifestyles and needs? So you can kind of take a look and see really how people agreed or disagreed with some of those statements. And that continues on the next couple pages as well. And you just kind of get a sense of what the demographic background of the individuals who participated in that housing needs assessment, the community needs assessment, I apologize. So the household size of the residents, if they actually lived in Jacksonville, if they work in Jacksonville, household income, things like that. On that next page is the fun part, I like to think, is the Jacksonville, the housing stock survey. That's when you go out. You might have seen volunteers with the phone, and they were doing just an exterior look at every single building, every single residence in Jacksonville, and kind of giving it a score, if you will. And what we found is that there's obviously a lot of residential utilization, 87.94%, was residential, single-family homes, detached, so that's a standalone single-family, and then you had 6.10% single-family homes attached. And then over you see the breakdown of multifamily in the city as well. So what did the residential exterior condition look like on that next page? The red will represent poor, that's kind of your dilapidated housing. Fair, livable, but could use some updates. Average, good, excellent. You can see where that looks like in certain different parts of the city. And what these housing stock surveys do, they really give you an idea of where some work could be done on the housing stock in the city. Where could some of the efforts be really utilized at? Then on the next page, you see that there are occupancy, where are some vacancies in Jacksonville, where maybe that's an opportunity for development of affordable housing. Maybe it's an area to bring more single-family housing and things like that. So those are some of the examples of, how we gathered the data via the market analysis, the community needs assessment, the housing stock survey. And from doing all of those things, we come up with these housing goals and recommendations. And I won't go through every single one, but what you will see are some of the action items and the metrics that they cover, and then some of the implementation and funding strategies that could coincide with those goals. So through IDA, for example, we have different programs in our community department. The Abandoned Residential Property Municipality Relief Program, we really like our very long titles at IDA apparently. Strong Communities Programs, Foreclosure Prevention Programs, so these are all available to the city of Jacksonville. One of the things I really want to touch on is the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit, LIHTC. So this plan that was put together, you could use that for a 9% LIHTC application that helps developers have tax credits to be able to build affordable housing in the city of Jacksonville and bring more housing to Jacksonville. So with that being said, again, we have a full plan, and as Brian said, it could be part of the comp plan, the housing part of the comp plan. So we asked Mayor, council members, if we could take a look at this and move to adopt this housing portion, the community needs assessment, housing needs assessment, as the housing part plan for the city of Jacksonville. Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be through resolution next meeting. Brian, next meeting, we'll adopt that through a resolution.
Outstanding.
Yeah,
Sounds great.
very good.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Did you say we'd get an electronic copy of it?
Yeah, so once everything is edited and really ready to go, you'll definitely, I'll send it to Brian, and Brian, you'll distribute it to everyone from there. There you go.
Thank you, Chris.
Awesome, thank you.
That's 217 or 70 pages, I can't remember.
I want to read
Yeah, it's a-
every page.
It's a pretty big document. I know. Thank you again.
And with Eric, you want to introduce, or how we want?
So these guys are from the Morgan County Housing Authority, and some of the good that's come from this, hopefully, will assist with the housing for Morgan County Housing Authority.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Eric Hansen. I'm the attorney for the Morgan County Housing Authority. With me tonight is Melissa Marsh. Many of you may know her. She's the executive director at the Housing Authority. And wanted to take the opportunity very briefly. Melissa's handing out what we hope to be development that we're going to be working on. The Housing Authority is not-for-profit entity that's its development arm, if you will. Has submitted a preliminary application to IDA. As you notice in that little, in what IDA had just talked about, one of the action items is working closely with the Housing Authority, seeking low-income housing tax credits, which would allow us to develop. What we've handed out here is very briefly kind of a site plan as well as some proposed elevations. Obviously, this is very, very preliminary, but where this is located is on North Main. If you look to the, if you're holding it up, the lower left-hand corner, you see the white buildings there, that's downtown Commons. So this is on the west side of the road heading north. So what we would be proposing is there's a lot of open space behind downtown Commons, first of all, that the Housing Authority already owns. There would be some townhomes there, or some, what were those referred to as the third page? That's Vast next to it, correct. Yep, so downtown villas. Along Main Street, there's a townhome look that we would be proposing. And then behind downtown Commons is the, they're kind of the apartment buildings as well that we'd be proposing there as well. Like I said, very briefly, just wanted to talk to you about those and tell you, this fits right in with the revitalization plan that you guys are considering. There's a need for affordable housing, there's a need for rental housing to begin with. And this meets that objective that the city is looking at. These would be built with tax credits, as we said, if the application is approved. The timeline is, right now it's a preliminary application. We will hear sometime in the next couple months whether or not IDA will invite us for a full application, in which case that would be due back in sometime in January. And then we would find out in probably April or so whether or not we are funded. And if that's the case, we would begin moving forward and doing all the things we need to do to get ready for that, which I imagine we will be seeing you a lot more often then as well. But any questions I can answer for you? Like I said, it's very preliminary, but we wanted to share that with you. And given that IDA was doing a little presentation, thought it would be a good time to share with you what we're thinking about. Sure.
So on page 1, on the bottom, so these townhouses that are on page 2, is
Correct.
that's what would be proposed to go on Main Street?
Correct, that's a proposed elevation there.
Sure.
And that's subject to change.
And so this area here, when would that be considered for
That's part of the
development?
same application. That would be
Okay.
page 3.
Okay,
Those buildings. This is all one application. Because they're
Gotcha.
so quick, they're so close together, they're almost contiguous, we thought it makes sense to put an application for all of those together. Anything you want to add, Melissa? Or no? Okay. Great. So, thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great.
Just one last thing to follow that up. 3 of the properties that are on the list for community development are 2 of the properties on North Main, and 1 of the other properties is on Independence. So 3 of those properties would go toward this project as far as the city assigning those liens. So that's a big part of the project as well. And shows that, the city's behind this, and you saw the pictures of the buildings. It would be pretty awesome on North Main.
Very good. Any questions? Okay. You're more than welcome to stay, but if you need to leave. Okay. Next item under the mayor's report is to discuss a craft grow facility. And I know we have representatives from the potential craft grow, and I'll please, Dennis Worth, step on up.
Tim's going to do that.
Yes.
Council members, thank you for having us, circulating a few materials. I believe you had access to these via email previously, but wanted to have something in front of you for today's meeting. Again, Tim Dorsey, my partner Dennis Worth, we represent Wyvern Botanicals, a craft cannabis state-approved and licensed company. We're looking to bring our operation to the city of Jacksonville. We all have some roots here, and looking to rehabilitate and retrofit the ACH property to beautify that and bring sources of revenue and employment to Jacksonville. Part of that process, unfortunately for us, is a request to a variance or amendment to an ordinance that exists with some residential easement. We're requesting that be approved by this board and allow us to bring that economic improvement and job creation here. Part of what we are doing is not only bringing taxes, job creation, and local business collaboration, but also utilizing local resources for general contractors, employment, and collaborating with local dispensaries to have local Jacksonville-grown product by Jacksonville-approved patients. Part of that scenario with the ACH property is 56 acres that we have access to that we're looking at renewable energy resources to power our facility. Inherently, by doing that, we have an opportunity to give back some of those renewable processes and business contacts to the city of Jacksonville for other sustainable and renewable projects. And with that, I'll open for questions.
Yeah, I mean, what we're really gonna have to be considering at some point, the major roadblock that you have is that our zoning ordinance as it pertains to the cannabis growth facility currently has a 1,500-foot setback from any residential property. And I think as we discussed that early on, that was thinking something would locate in the center of town or something like that. You are within 295 feet or so of residential property out there. That's the request, would be to amend the ordinance to allow this facility at the AC Humco, which seems very well suited for this use, but it does run into that major roadblock of that distance. And basically just get any thoughts that you may have. If that's something that you're willing to entertain, I can proceed with preparation of that ordinance for your consideration at the next meeting, because you're on a fairly tight time frame.
We are, and thank you for having us here tonight. We just wanted to introduce the project. I know probably nothing can really be done until the December meeting, but we definitely want to be in front of you and understand what roadblocks there are, how we can help, get some information in front of you and collaborate, ahead of that December meeting. And something to note, one of the reasons we chose that property, very well suited, for that cultivation. It is something that is as you enter Jacksonville, it's a good opportunity to rehabilitate a piece of property with some very good, rich history here. But also there's a lot of security measures that exist there that we'd like to take advantage of. And I know we're close to a residential area there, but with the security measures that already exist on the property and things that we are implementing into the project, make it a very safe location. Whereas, if we took this in a different area of Jacksonville, we may have some roadblocks there.
This might be premature, but assuming that we move forward on this project, correct me, what would the exterior, what are your plans for the exterior? I know that there is a lot of security measures. What type of fencing are you considering? I mean, because it is so close to a residential area and a newly developed residential area, at least on one side, what are your plans for how that might look from the residential side?
Yeah, and very quickly, one thing we do want to note is, the nuisance from our facilities is very low. We have very sophisticated HVAC units in there, so there wouldn't be any noise or smell pollution coming from the facility. But I think Dennis can speak to probably some of the things we're doing on the exterior to be good neighbors.
Well, it's called paint, putty, and glue. I mean, make it look better than it has been. And I've been an orthopedic sales rep and come in this town 24 years, and I've looked at that several times every day going in. And we'd like to paint it. As far as the fencing, we probably reconstruct that and paint that as well and just give it a good look. So.
Is there a similar facility anywhere that would be comparable to
Yeah,
this?
there in Barry, Illinois, you could actually go. I mean, we were here a couple weeks ago, and I'm not sure. I think it was Dan that suggested that if you have any questions, you could go to Barry, and their facility is very nice, and that's kind of what we want to look like. So.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly an opportunity, and we've even discussed, with the size of that property and its position, ahead of, interest into Jacksonville, even having, Welcome to Jacksonville or things like that, something that we collaborate with the city of Jacksonville to do, just to make best use of that property, right? We don't need to do anything flashy there. We don't have retail clients coming in there. There's a very closed-door opportunity for us, right? So we don't have a lot of incoming traffic.
It just needs a clean look.
Just needs a
Yeah.
clean look, yep.
And I'm not being negative at all. I'm just, someone inquired of me today, since this was gonna be on the agenda this evening, what would the exterior look like? What would the fence, would it look like another prison as we're coming into town?
Sure.
Is it gonna look like that?
Yeah.
So that was their concern. How tall is this fence gonna be? Is it gonna look like another prison coming into town?
No, in fact, we don't need anything like that. Per state regulations, we have security cameras that the state can peek in at any time. We're very transparent in these operations, so security is a really big deal for us. With that being said, we don't need to look like a prison to do that, right?
Some of the things that we were mainly concerned with is the structure of the buildings, and we weren't really, concerned about, how it looked. Now, after the fact, we're gonna paint it, obviously, make it look nice. I don't know if we'd put a name on it, but the fencing that you're concerned about, we would go around the whole property, and if the fencing needed addressed, and if it needed to be updated, we would do that. But I would like to paint, I know that the dispensary in town's it's like a electric green, so
Yeah.
we wanted to do a light green with a border like a Kelly green, something like of that nature, but clean.
Well, and in all reality, we don't really need to advertise that site for its
No.
intended use. Like I said, it's very closed doors, so, nobody really needs to know we're there. We just want to be good neighbors. So whatever that looks like to be compliant with the city of Jacksonville is very good with us.
I think that Mike Hayes also has, it's gone around to some of his neighbors there, and he's actually have people writing notes and letters that it's not gonna be a problem for them. And that would include the Black Hawk apartment complex. I know that he's talked to him. And basically, Mike that's his subdivision, so.
In fact, just one building, and part of this booklet is the initial engineering plans. The first page of that has a grade section, and that is the building in question. So say location of project, and that is one of the first buildings, so not the brick, but just past that on the ACH property. It's about a 70,000 square foot building that we're utilizing for this. The rest of the buildings we're looking at potentially developing, for potentially some renewable energy projects or, leasing to other good neighbors as well. For the time being, we're developing just that potential location. Initially, we're looking to hire 8 to 10 locally, with a staff of 15 to 20. They'll certainly grow. We're dealing with a little bit of a growth issue with the state of Illinois and approving a full 14,500 square foot of flower canopy. As they approve that and potentially and hopefully expand that, that will obviously add to our employees.
I have no idea how big the Berry facility is, but I know they employ about 425 people at this point in time. But they were one of the first licensed the first 20, so they're way ahead of everybody. But, I mean, that's what you could probably look at maybe down the road.
Yeah, and as a comparison there, so some of those first licenses, medical here, in the realm of 40,000 square foot worth of canopy, and just so you can do a quick comparison there, we're at 14,000 square foot. In fact, we have to start at 5,000 square foot. So we're growing into that license. That being said, some of these other facilities have extraction and manufacturing licenses. We're pursuing that as well. But just to launch, we're asking to bring some of those initial jobs right here to Jacksonville. So really, we're waiting on the approval from your group, of course. And as soon as we have that green light, we can start to deploy capital. So we've got the financial wherewithal to do this. We've got the expertise. My team, in fact, has done over 56 of these projects in 9 states. So we're very well suited to do this here in Jacksonville, and very excited about this project. This is my home area, so we all have roots here and looking to do this. The time frame for us is green light from you guys. We'll start the retrofitting at the ACH facility. So we'll start the interior improvement here this winter, and then some of that exterior improvement, obviously, we'll have to wait for finer weather. But probably July, August, we're looking at hiring local.
Brian, I'm going to put you on the spot for a second. The deadline's passed to get on the December Plan Commission agenda. Wednesday.
Yep, and they're prepared to get on that.
Okay. What I was going to suggest to the council, if you want to do it in this fashion, is we can have an ordinance changing the setbacks ready for your review and approval on first reading on the 28th, follow up with your rezoning petition, and December contingent upon second reading being approved, so that at the 1 December meeting, we should be able to approve both the ordinance amendment and the rezoning change. It's currently zoned M2, heavy manufacturing. It's the heaviest manufacturing that we have. But it does require, under the ordinance we passed for cannabis, that it be a special use so that you can impose any restrictions, hours, whatever you want to do at that time. So we could follow up then with both second reading and the rezoning approval at the December meeting.
Yeah, that'd be great. We have that paperwork with us even tonight that we can submit
Sure.
for that application. And, we wouldn't ask this if there wasn't precedent for this. A lot of other municipalities that I've dealt with and even counties here in Illinois have been doing this. So, we don't want to ask you for something that's not possible or hasn't been done before. We just want to be good neighbors, right? So, I think the point of this meeting is to introduce it ahead of that voting body, and answer any questions that may exist. And if there's any homework we need to do in the meantime, we're open to collaboration.
We're on the right path. So, yeah, any questions for these gentlemen? Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having us.
yeah.
Appreciate it.
I think you guys, I think there's an email circulating out there too. If there's any questions, definitely please reach out to us. And again, just want to collaborate and be good neighbors.
I guess we could call Mike up and have him kind of
Yeah,
say a
Mike,
couple things about,
Yeah.
the neighbors, so
Absolutely.
appreciate you guys listening to us.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mike Hayes, and I own the AC Humco, former AC Humco property, and have for 4 or 5 years. We've cleaned it up to the point where we keep the weeds down, we keep it mowed, we do all that stuff. But I bought that property, as many of you know. I've developed the new subdivision that Lori just mentioned behind it. We've got 26 lots fully developed there, and we've got approval to do 30 more if we get those sold. We put the winery in there. When that property came up for auction, I stepped in because I wanted to have some control over what happened there, because I wanted to make sure we had a good neighbor there rather than, licks and promises from somebody else. I wanted to make sure that I had some measure of input on what direction that property headed. Since then, acquiring it, I've had a number of inquiries about the property, many of which did not make any sense for us. I mean, we've had, the second bidder, highest bidder when that thing sold was a scrapyard. I've had scrapyards, I've had meat butchering facilities, I've had all kinds of things, and many of you remember that the AC Humco plant, when it operated, didn't smell so great. Backed up all the sewers around there, all that kind of thing. I haven't seen a lot of things that I thought made sense there. I think their proposal makes a lot of sense. Everything's gonna be inside, all the cultivation's gonna be inside. They're under strict regulation as far as security and cameras and all that kind of stuff. I really wasn't looking for something that was gonna have a super high level of train traffic, trucks in and out all day. This thing just makes a lot of sense. This group has done a high level of due diligence on the property. I think they're well-financed, they're licensed. I've had 2 or 3 other craft growers come in there, none of which had licenses. They're licensed. I think they're well-financed. They certainly have the capability. They've proven they've done it in other places. And I think I have, as Dennis pointed out, I've spoken to Drew Lombardo at Blackhawk. He fully supports it. Mitch King across the street, who's got the apartments across the street, fully supports it. So I just think this is a good neighbor. I think that as far as the fencing and all that, I mean, there's fencing there that was put there by, actually it's put there by Ameren. Most of it was put there by Ameren when they rented the facility. But this industry is here, okay? We can get out in front of it. It's legal. It's growing like crazy. We can, the good thing you asked about, Mike asked about future plans for the other buildings. There's another 210,000 square feet there for future growth for these guys possibly. I mean, they're going to bring in good neighbors. You know, we talked about the possibility of them just acquiring the one building, but they want to be in control of what goes on in there. They want to know who their neighbors are. They want to know who comes and goes. That's the kind of talk I like to hear when I own a bunch of lots right behind them and a winery right next door. So I think it's a great opportunity. I hate to see it get away, and I can't make any promises. If we don't do this, who's going to call me next? And they may not need rezoning. You know, it's zoned M3. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that could go in there that wouldn't require approval from this council, and you guys wouldn't get a look at first. So I think it makes a lot of sense. So anybody's got any questions for me, I'm happy to answer those.
No, I agree.
All right, thank you.
I agree, Mike. Thanks. Okay, I always say this, you guys are more than welcome to stick around, but if you need to leave, feel free at any time. The next item is the city attorney's report.
Thank you. Before I address that one item, I'd mention, for those of you who have not heard, the rezoning request for the property at 400 East Morton Avenue, that was the liquor store. That petition has been withdrawn, so there'll be no action on that tonight. If there was anybody here in the audience for that one, there's no activity on that tonight. The item I do have is discuss the digital billboard. This discussion took place to some extent at the last council meeting, and I just wanted to kind of update you on what will be necessary in order to get that site in compliance with what you would need to do if you want to allow that digital billboard. Again, this is at the billboard on the east side of the, basically the east side of the McDonald's property. That is a non-conforming billboard at this stage. That type of billboard, which is off-premises advertising, is only allowed if it's at least 1,000 feet from residential zoned property. To the northeast on Richard Street, those houses are much closer than that. So that's a sign that was grandfathered in when the zoning ordinance initially was put together. Since it's grandfathered in, if the changes they are making constitute more than 50% repair or replacement of that sign, by our ordinance, that sign has to come down and nothing else can go in there. So the first change you'll have to consider is reducing the setback for an off-premises advertising sign to about 300 feet from the 1,000 feet that the ordinance presently provides. In that fashion, it's no longer grandfathered in, it's a complying sign, so then you can take a look at whatever other changes you want. The second change that's going to be required, if you want to entertain this, is that by our ordinance, movable copy signs are limited to 32 square feet with a 20% variance allowed, so you're up about 38, 39 square feet. My understanding is they're looking at making that entire sign, or pretty much that entire size sign, as movable copy facing the west. So if you want that large of a movable copy sign, the second change we need to make to the ordinance is increasing the size of a movable copy sign that will be allowed. Having said that, then the next question that was relayed to me is, can we limit it to just this site? And those changes would not apply just to this location. If any other location in the city met that requirement, they would qualify for an off-premises movable copy sign, just like this one would be. There aren't too many locations where they could go in. These signs are limited to Morton, South Main, Walnut, to the highways, so to speak. And they have to be at least 1,000 feet apart, so you can't have them stacked up on Morton. But those are the types of changes that you would need to make in the ordinance if we are going to go forward with this movable copy sign as proposed. The attorney for the sign company did get some information to me, which is an alternative, something else that you can consider, which I don't particularly favor, but it's your decision. And that is carve out an exception just for this one location, basically saying, notwithstanding any other provision of our ordinance, you can have a movable copy sign under 2 or 3 different requirements, all of which this sign met. But whether you would want to go that direction or actually change the ordinance in those specific sections where it needs to be changed, that's what you'll need to decide. And I'll need some direction at some point if you want me to go ahead and prepare those changes for your formal consideration for the sign company. Any questions on any of that? If not, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Very good, thank you, Brian. And committee reports this evening, Parks and Lakes, Alderman Laura Goldman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have one item this evening. Discuss waiving bids and seeking proposals for operation of concessions at the Links Golf Course. And I don't have any info.
What we, as many of you know, that Butch Wood is no longer going, he's going to give up the concession stand at the golf course. And he's put the feelers out to a lot of different people. We failed to get that on the meeting last 2 weeks ago. So basically, we went out and put this in the newspaper, asking for proposals from people, but we wanted to make sure that we did it in here so that you know what's going on. So we're waiting for those proposals to come in. Hopefully, we get more than one. I already have one on my desk, and I know of another that will be coming, and those are due by December 1st so that we can make that decision and let those people get the winter time to get everything set up, because they don't have to start back up until March 1st. The contract goes from March 1st to November 1st. So we're just asking to let you know that we're seeking the proposals for that operation.
Okay. Thank you, that's it? Okay, Planning and Public Works, Alderman Scott.
All right. We've got 8 items tonight. The first being discuss waiving bids and accepting proposal for the purchase of a new utility vehicle for the Jacksonville cemeteries. It looked like there was 2 proposals on that, with the lowest coming from Henry's for $22,528. Does that sound right? Are there any questions on that one?
That is a capital improvement item that they've got on the list.
All right, the next is discuss waiving bids and accepting proposal for the purchase of a new columbarium for the Diamond Grove Cemetery. You want to talk about this one, Doug?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. A little backstory on this. I had $100,000 that was run through capital improvement for the new development at Diamond Grove Cemetery. This year, I was able to use $12,500 of those monies to finish the southern loop on that property to bring that to completion. So I basically have $87,500 available of those funds that I would like to use for purchase of a columbarium for Diamond Grove. Basically, what has happened is the last 2 summers, I have had the opportunity to get fill dirt to complete additional development on that new ground, and that has not materialized. So I've been pushed back to get that completed. So I'm going to look at that from a different direction now and wait till that happens before I come back to the council to do additional infrastructure work on that space. So with your permission, I would like to take those funds that are left in my new development allotment and purchase a second columbarium for Diamond Grove. We are down to basically less than 25% on the current columbarium we have, and I have a lead time of probably in excess of a year to actually acquire the item. And then there would be infrastructure for that also that would need to be done to make that a sellable item within Diamond Grove. The new road work, in conjunction with my Hutchinson contact, we need a significant amount of fill on the north end before we can move forward with both the road work and the drainage to make that viable for usage. So I tried to jump to maybe some other steps in the phasing to get to that. And basically the response was that that might be detrimental to what we're hoping to accomplish from a cost perspective. So it all is still kind of waiting for that fill dirt to get us to the point where we can move on with subsequent phasing. Yes, I did ask the vendor, Jacksonville Monument, if we could get that invoice this year, and he said yes, that's possible.
Just because I'm curious, would it go on the new subdivision, the new area, or would it be?
It will be on the west lane in the existing property. Yes, we have an island, and the thought process here is with one of the, either the hex or the octagon, is to potentially have the ability to do more than one in this spacing, so we could incorporate landscaping and other infrastructures, sidewalks and whatnot in that space. But it would give us a lot of sellability because of the size, and also that locale will work great for that. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Next item is discuss request to rezone property located at 750 East Chamber Street from R2 to R5. This was recommended to be approved by the commission, and it actually brings it into, probably should have been R5 the whole time. Any questions on this one? Seeing none, the next item is discuss request to rezone property located at 1108 West Morton from B3 to B3 with special use. Which one is that? Is that Taco Gringo? That one is B for a new Taco Gringo. Any questions on that one? All right, the next item is discuss request to rezone property located at 3009 West Lafayette Avenue from B3 to B4 with special use. That one.
This one was
For the is that the one we're gonna put the emergency on?
yeah, was put up kind of a pole barn type building for an occasion, so it is a storage facility, basically. It's way out on the west end of
Right at, yeah. Yeah.
Because he wants to pour concrete this year.
Yeah.
It's getting cold.
Any questions on that? Next item is discuss request to rezone property located at 1101 East Morton Avenue from PD Mixed to B3. That's the one for the Dollar General? Any questions on that? The next item is discuss request to rezone property located at 1055 and 1061 East Morton from PD Mix to B4 with special use. This one is mainly bringing the zoning up to date on the development at the winery and all of that. Any questions on that one? All right, and the next item is discuss assigning liens to Two Rivers Land Bank.
Those are the three properties that we talked about for the Morgan County Housing Authority project. And there's also one on South Main that we demoed, signed that lien to the land bank, and then put it up for auction. There's been some interest in it.
Okay, this is what we've been waiting for. Alderman Watts?
We have 3 items tonight, and we have Benton's here to share with us about those. The first is to discuss Lake Movistar 319 grant. Are you doing these all together?
Yeah, we'll just do
Okay.
them all together.
And the
They're in a
second
row.
is discuss nutrient assessment reduction plan. And the third is discuss wastewater treatment plan project.
All right, good evening, everyone. Another presentation here. Tonight, yeah, as Mary mentioned, we'll be talking about the Lake Movistar Inlake Sedimentation Dam project. This may be a reminder for some, but might be a new project for some. I think it's been a few years now, and maybe some of the aldermen may have been seated or may not at this point. So the update tonight is kind of a summary of the working group that we have in the Parks and Lakes superintendents, the chairman of each of the Parks and Lakes, and then utility. Reminder, the lake kind of works at both. We have Parks and Lakes, but also at the same time, this is part of our water source. So the Lake Jacksonville and Lake Movistar work in series as the lake sources to be coupled with the well sources as well. So we'll get an update tonight and kind of see what the next steps are. Kind of develop what the overall problem is and kind of where we need to go. This project has some goals to it. There's a lot of them that we're trying to hit. I want to make sure those are your goals as well. And then like everything, there's cost estimates involved in what needs to be done and alternatives to be considered. So we'll go through those. Quick little activity history on the lake. Lake Movistar, the dredging was completed in 2015. It got about an additional 111 million gallons of storage in the lake at the time. And on the screen here, you can see the very dark blue area that's about 5 to 7 feet deeper than the surrounding lake portion. And since that time, the city has been very active with the Illinois EPA 319 grant program. Historically, the 319 program was a 50-50 grant program. And really the first part over the last 3, 4, 5 years that's been done is really up in the watershed, trying to do best management practices and keeping the sediments back in the fields instead of in the lake. So that's been the activity so far. As part of some of the past reports, another recommendation was to consider an in-lake sediment dam, which would then trap the sediments. If we can't keep them in the farm fields, maybe trap those in an area where we can get to them and then improve water quality at the intake, which is on the north side of the lake. And a part of that then is also to reduce, the nutrient and the sediment loading, but the nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, the other things that we're trying to do to also improve water quality. So this grant specifically, though, a few years ago it was received, and $350,000 total. I think it was in budget year, maybe 2019 even. $175,000 came from the grant, and $175,000 came from the city funds. So we can see over time, and this really has been a struggle since 1921 and 1939 when the original 2 lakes were built. The upper right-hand portion there, the picture's from 1941. You can see there's not a lot of activity going on around the lake on the east side, but unfortunately, update in 2011 and then 2022, you can see where the progression of the sediments, not only in sediment, but actually timbered area. And Adam Fox will talk about some of the limitations we have. That some areas have turned into timber, but some areas are wetlands, and we're going to have limitations on those. And then in 2022, the channeling has started through these areas, and you can see the dredge area in the red. So sediments have progressed west at a pretty good rate, although in the large part of the lake, a lot of those sediments are now been removed. The east side has continued to struggle. Some of the project goals are to increase the sediment trapping. And so we're trying to catch the sediments where we can get to them in the future. And, you know, like we did with the dredging project, maybe we get them where we can handle them a little more frequently, so there's less of a time period between when we need to dredge, and then make them more cost effective to get out into the dredge disposal site. Improve the water quality, of course, and protect the water supply, and then try to make sure the money that we're spending upstream is not wasted downstream as well. One limitation, and Todd Dablemont, who's with me tonight, will talk about some of the flooding limitations. Anything we do in the lake, we want to make sure we don't increase the flood level in the area. You know, if we're going to make investments in the lake, we're also trying to see if there's opportunities for recreational chances there. If we're going to have some investment in there, whether it be walls or, you know, something that might allow someone to go out and fish or something like that, there may be other opportunities we can consider. And those different things we can do might make us more grant eligible too as we go forward. So there's two other gentlemen with me tonight, Adam Fox. Adam Fox you've seen before. He works with me in water and wastewater. He's also our environmental permit specialist. So this project, as you can imagine, has a lot of environmental permitting involved, and that's really part of what the grant dollars are being spent for. Also, Todd Dablemont's with me. Todd is our hydraulics specialist. Todd is in charge of our Rolla, Missouri office. Might not have seen Todd before, and he'll talk about the flooding aspects of some of these options. So, Adam?
All right, thank you, everyone. As Jamie mentioned, I'll go through some of the options that we looked at here. We started with, we'll call it the simplest option of doing nothing right now, leaving well enough alone with what you have, on up through what we would consider some simple potential solutions to more complex solutions that add opportunities out there beyond just trapping the sediments in the lake. As you can see, I have a few pictures here. The top portion is a type of dredging that would be done out there, additional dredging compared to what you have done in the past years. The picture right below that is a sediment dam that's installed in a lake not too far from here. And then below that are a couple other options of different types of sediment dams and some temporary solutions and that type of thing. So the first one is the no immediate action here. And as what you can see, you know, your area right through here, this is that sediment delta that is continuing to come out into the lake. You can see the darker green area, that's the area that was dredged previously. And the original channel, the creek, used to come through here. You can see that's filled in with sediment, and it actually has rerouted itself around this way right now. And what we'll see, most likely, if with the doing no immediate action, is this vegetation here will probably continue to progress out into these shallower portions of the lake. If anybody's been out there on drier years when we haven't had some rainfall for a while, you'll notice that this area here, sometimes there's no water at all. Even when it's at full pool, you may see some of the blue herons and that type of thing, birds walking around out there in knee-high water. So there's a lot of sediment that's already been deposited there, and so what we would think the most logical occurrence is that this is just going to continue on out here. And right now, this area that you're seeing here is not classified as a wetland area. We had a wetland delineation performed out here on everything from here all the way to up to the road at the east there. And really this portion right here is the only area that was not classified as a wetland right now. And so something could potentially be done there right now. Beyond that, moving further east, you're pretty limited, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. If you chose to do nothing now, that would be You would utilize the previously dredged area to trap the sediments and catch those that come into the lake right now. So most likely in the future, some additional dredging would be needed to clean that out and maintain that area. Some of the more simple, I'll call them simple options that we looked at. One is these sediment curtains down here. They're basically a floating barrier. They're not very expensive, but they're not permanent. They last a few years. They're effective, but they're kind of unsightly and not something that would be a long-term solution. We looked at installing some rock piers out in the lake to kind of redirect the flow of the water to give it a little more time to let the sediments settle out. And then another one looked at floating wetlands. They look nice. They're a neat solution. They help with taking the nutrients out that's coming into the lake, but they're also very costly. They're hard to maintain, and they're hard to keep in place. Dredging is one of the options that we looked at in depth here. You had a big dredging project previously. We were limited when we get up into this area by some of the tree stumps that were out there and some other features or items that were in the lake. And so the type of dredging to continue on through here would be a amphibious type dredging. If you think back to that earlier slide, there were some tracos with big flotation devices on them, essentially. And so the dredging to do something in that area and get rid of all of those trees would require that type of equipment, and unfortunately it gets very costly to do something like that. The advantage of that would be you could sort of dig out a large reservoir that would allow for the sediments to drop out, and you'd have an area there to maintain in the future, easier to get into to get the sediments back out. But unfortunately, it's a costly challenge at this time. And I meant to say earlier, if anybody has any questions that we go through, feel free to stop me. Sometimes I talk kind of fast, I know that. So, and then we move into the in-lake sediment dam that we talked about earlier that was identified in the previous reports as a potential option for helping to trap these sediments. So we looked at some different styles. One of them is this sheet pile construction. And to get the best sediment retaining capacity, it would need to be constructed. This is city-owned property down here, the old Pony Colt ball fields. And it would be constructed, straight across the lake over to Country Club Road. It would, be at an elevation to where you would be able to slow the flow of water coming up there to allow the sediments to drop out, but it also would restrict access on this eastern portion of the lake, most likely, because you have a wall across there. You can't really get boats or anything like that through there. So we had looked at that, and then when we met with the working group before, the next option here is, again, you'll see same location, but it's an in-lake dam with pedestrian access, and then bridges that could be constructed across there at the openings. There would be openings there to allow the flow of water to go through, with a weir wall of some sort at a set elevation to hold back the flow of water, slow it down to come through there. Again, you would be restricting access to the eastern portion of the lake here, but that may not be a negative thing. You would have, it could be an area that, if the city would so choose, be a designated canoe, kayak portion of the lake, something like that. This is, as I was talking about earlier, I had this photo. This is at Otter Lake. They have a similar type of sediment dam installed over there, and you can see, the very different colors of the water right there. It's, this is where the water is flowing into the lake, and it is really retaining the sediments back there. So they do serve a purpose. They function well. This one would have the added benefit of additional recreational opportunities out there with there's the Bark Park not far from there, and it would utilize the previously dredged areas to trap the sediments, and then it would provide a location where the city would be able to access that for future dredging and maintenance to get those sediments back out. As we went through all these options, of course, as we talked about, each slide I've had some, a cost up there. But I put together a cost estimate summary here to kind of show you where we came to on these things. And please note that these are cost estimates based on prices in 2022. everything's been a little volatile recently. So the working group that we were working with the city here, the in-lake dam with the pedestrian access and the bridges across there was the preferred option. And the cost estimate falls kind of right in the middle. That's at $2,800,000 for that option. The most expensive option that we looked at, the dredging, and as I mentioned earlier, the type of dredging gets very costly. It came in at a little over $10 million just for the dredging. So at that point, we kind of decided let's look past that, not consider that at this time, that maybe that area up there that is growing up into vegetation and will probably become classified as a wetland in the future, maybe that's okay. And so the additional recreational opportunities and, of having the pedestrian access across there, and then that as compared to the sheet pile construction dam, fairly big cost difference there, but the sheet pile is pretty unsightly, and it provides for the sediment trapping, but it doesn't provide any other opportunities out there. With any of these, though, we do have some restrictions and limitations. One of those is the existing water elevation. Anything that we construct across the lake, we cannot permanently increase the water level upstream. It has to be set at either the same elevation or lower elevation than what the existing spillway is on the lake. So we can't make anything upstream that was once a lake, we can't bring it back. We can't raise something up to bring the water up to make it a lake again. And as we mentioned multiple times, the wetlands, basically every color you see up in this area here is classified as a wetland, except the green is water, and then that is our area that is not yet a wetland, but probably will be in the future. And so disturbing or doing anything that would, where we would be getting rid of wetlands, it becomes quite a challenge with permitting, and you sometimes even have to purchase land elsewhere to make wetlands in exchange, so it becomes quite an ordeal. Flood elevation, we have set flood elevations through this area, and so we don't want to increase those. The outer blue area here, that is the 100-year floodplain elevation. This inner area that's kind of a red stripe color, that is the regulatory floodway. So not only is this a flood zone, but it's a regulatory floodway that is designed to move the floodwaters out quickly. So a structure in there that would impede flow out through there has to be considered and studied greatly to allow the flow of water to get through there fast and not raise the flood elevations. And then the other thing is, you have adjacent properties around the lake. There's residential areas that have to be considered, and those flood elevations taken into consideration for that. And so it's at this point that I'm going to pass it to Todd to talk about some of the study and the work that went into determining some flood elevations and how we got to where we're at right now. Do you do this?
No. So just wanted to give a quick overview of some of the hydraulic analysis that's been done for this. Starting with the watershed and trying to determine how much water is actually flowing into Lake Movistar. So looking at rainfall, small frequent storms like the 2-year, the 10-year events that could commonly happen in any year, all the way up to the 100-year event and greater, which you guys have certainly seen floods that have been above that in the last decade for sure. So looking at those rainfall events and then coupling that with information on the watershed, so all the area that's draining to the lake. What type of land cover is there? What kind of slopes do we have? Is it fields, forests, buildings, all of the above? Bringing that all together to determine how much water is actually flowing then into Lake Movistar. Once we get that determined, then it's a matter of routing that water through the channel and through the lake itself. So we took a combination of survey data, LiDAR elevation data, which is a bit of a mess when you look at it like this, but brought that together to develop a 3D model of the lake itself and the channel. You can see the light green areas there, the dredged areas that Adam and Jamie have talked about. The darker green are the higher areas in the lake where the sediment has built up over time and is still there. So we use this 3D model to route the water then on the computer through the Lake Movistar and the channel, determine what's actually going to happen, what areas are going to flood for which type of event, so that we know how much effect there is for the things that we might do. So the end result in the software that we use is something like this, and you can see the outline for both 100-year and then looking at some larger historical floods that's shown here for that east portion of Lake Movistar, to determine what areas are going to be impacted, and to make sure that anything we might do in the lake, we know how much it might raise flood levels upstream, and also make sure that it has the effect and does what we want it to do in the end result.
Okay, so where do we go from here? The preferred alternative that we came to with the working group was the in-lake sediment dam with pedestrian access. And so from this point, we're going to proceed with applications to the permitting agencies. There's several of those that we will be working with, including Department of Natural Resources, EPA, Army Corps of Engineers, and then local authorities being, regulatory floodway. And so we'll be working with those agencies. We will continue with the design and plan development, and once we get to a little further along point, then we'll have some public meetings so we can get input from public for anybody, but we expect people that live in and around the Lake Movistar to provide some input and some thoughts on this as well. And so it's it can be a challenge working through some of these things. As you've seen, we have a lot of restrictions and limitations that we're dealing with, and we'll be trying to flush those out with through these permitting agencies, and getting to a point to where we have something that the city is ready to look to the future to move forward with.
Summarize a little,
Yeah.
Adam. So the grant that you have, the 50/50 grant, will get you to the point where you've examined all these permits and you get a set of plans ready to go. Nothing says you have to go forward. Nothing says you necessarily have to spend this money down the road for construction. But at least it gets you to that point where you've analyzed the limitations on the permits and you've done the design at half off, which is good. When would that be to the point where we'd be ready? Probably in the next year or so, maybe a little bit farther. Some of these permitting items that Adam talked about have a lengthy time period to them. So we're at least going to apply, and part of this process is figuring out what we can do, but also what we can't do. And learning that over the next year is kind of where we'll be. So there is a stopping point where we can all sort of determine what we want to do and how we want to move forward. No one has all this money just laying around. So what's the funding picture look like going forward? It's probably a combination of multiple grant programs. Of course, some city money would probably have to be involved. But we'd like to hopefully say that we'd be able to have 2 or 3 different programs complement each other. And as we move forward, and Adam and Brett weren't here this evening, I don't think, but they were very interested in the recreational opportunities, and maybe I'm kind of interested in that too, on how that makes us a little more grant eligible and coupling these programs together. So this was an update tonight. If anybody has any questions, we'd be glad to answer those. Okay, maybe down the road we'll have questions. I think the other items, Mary, on the list were NARP update,
yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to go a little out of order. Number 3 is a sewer plant update. So real quick, and then Adam's going to do the NARP update. We have phase 1 of the sewer plant ready to bid pretty much, and we're trying to see what the funding picture is here over the next 2 months. I'd like to say we're maybe going to be advertising for bids probably in the first quarter of 2023, and then moving into construction, hopefully by midsummer or maybe a little bit later. We have a meeting with EPA folks here next week, and we're going to learn a little bit more at that time and kind of see how we're sitting in the scoring, and then we'll be able to give you a better idea of what the schedule looks like. Okay, Adam?
Very quick update on the NARP. And as you may recall, this is where we had the company that had the monitors out in various locations in Movistar in the creek, monitoring several different parameters throughout the summer. Those monitors and samplers have all been pulled with the exception of the flow monitors. During the time period when they were collecting samples, we didn't get any rain events that were causing the high flow that they needed to see to get the correct flow measurements for that. So we're waiting for that, and then those will be taken out of there, and then all the data that they collected can be put together into a final report, and we'll have that completed at that time. So we're kind of waiting for the rain event right now.
Probably should have said nutrient assessment reduction
Oh,
plan
yeah.
as part of your NPDS permit. The NPDS permit, another long acronym, the permit that allows you to discharge from the wastewater plant. It has a slew of things you have to do, of course, over the 5 years, and the reduction plan of the nutrients is part of that. So that's what the sampling is going on right now. Okay. Any questions? No more acronyms, I swear. Thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate it very much.
Is there any public comment at this time?
Yes, I have a couple of comments. The sign-in sheet up here. All right. Do you want me to go ahead, or do we wait until the meeting actually starts, or how do we go about that? All
No,
right.
you're fine to go ahead.
So I'm here today, I was here in front of you guys about 3 weeks ago regarding 234 West State Street. We're a bit frustrated at the fact that we're not on the agenda this evening. I believe when we left the last meeting, I looked almost each and every one of you guys in the eye, and it was my understanding, what I heard was that this was going to be at the council tonight for a decision so that we could proceed with moving forward one way or another. And we came in front of you with two options. One of them that is potentially going to save the city between $300,000 and $500,000 that we are willing to take the expense on completely ourselves. Like I said, we were told that there would be a decision, and action does need to be taken. It's been 1 year since the building fell down. I can't emphasize enough. We have gone around the community. We have gone to people in the community. We have tried to find solutions, but action needs to be taken. And you don't actually need a vote on this item. What needs to happen is our demolition permit at this point. If you guys are unwilling to fund the project, then a demolition permit should be granted. You guys do not need to vote on a demolition permit. You just need to authorize or direct or authorize the individuals within the executive branch of the mayor to take the action to grant our demolition permit so that we can get this thing done this winter. And if you don't want to do that, and if we cannot get that, we filed an appeal, and we have to go through could end up having to go through the court process to try and save you guys money, to try to save the public from the danger of this building falling in. And just overall, we need a decision, and stringing the individuals along who are trying to give you guys a solution it's not right, and we need some closure to this situation. And when I was here 3 weeks ago, we're pleading with you guys to please, please, please help us. We're trying our best, but we just cannot continue delaying this over and over and over again. And so with that, I don't have a whole lot else to say, but we would greatly appreciate it if this would move along. This is not something that we're willing to continue to do and just sit here and wait and maybe do it next year. If we cannot get this done tonight or in the next 7 days, we think we need to look for other alternatives, because simply waiting another year is just not an option. Thanks.
Jacksonville Main Street wants a chance to present some of their, Tom?
Go ahead.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, you can blame me for the delay. We were granted an audience with Mr. Nyberg and City Attorney Beard and the mayor by video conference. And Liz Tracy was at the meeting, Judy Ty was at the meeting, and we asked for a delay so that we could come up with an alternative to demolition. And we asked for that delay until the 28th of this month. And two people have looked at the building. We've encouraged them to talk to Brian so that he can judge their financial ability. We don't want to put anybody in there that cannot afford to do things with the building that will take the risk away from the neighbors or the risk away from the city. I understand totally that you don't want this liability any longer than necessary. But Jacksonville Main Street would like another 2 weeks to come up with an alternative. If we don't have an alternative, we will take our request off the agenda. But we do have some interested parties. Mr. Nyberg can attest to that, and that's where we are. We're a preservation-based organization, and that's what we do. So, you know, I take the blame for the delay, but I take it with pride. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Yeah, Ryan?
I'd just like to add to what's been said up to this point. I think that virtually anybody who was at the workshop meeting 3 weeks ago would walk away with the same conclusion that I did, that this item was going to be on the agenda for action. And I respect Tom and Main Street's opinion and position in wanting to make an additional presentation. However, I want to emphasize the fact that some of our frustration stems from the fact that we came to the city in the spirit of collaboration and cooperation. And we did not find out that we were not going to be on the agenda, as was discussed, until the agenda was published. And a lot of upset could have been prevented had somebody picked up a phone and spent 5 minutes talking to us. Because that's the spirit that we believe that we came to the city in. And that's the spirit that we want to try to preserve. We are trying to be a good partner here by saving public funds, using our own private funds to address what is a public problem. And it, again, to underscore what Mr. Brown said, it is not tenable for us to delay any further. We've talked about our rehab option. We've talked about our demolition option. And again, this has been a problem that has been outstanding now for in excess of 1 year. Yes, we just talked to the council 3 weeks ago, but this is not something that's been percolating for 3 weeks in our minds. This is something that's been percolating for in excess of 14 months. So again, I would urge everybody in here to do something about this sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Any other public comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll adjourn the workshop meeting and we'll go into the regular meeting. right, could I have everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I'd ask the clerk to please call roll.
Bartlett?
Here.
Cook?
Here.
Henry?
Here.
Hannett?
Here.
O'Donnell?
Here.
Ruben DeSellis? Here. Scott?
Here.
Speed?
Here.
Watts?
Here.
Williams?
Here.
Mayor Ezzard?
Here.
City Attorney Beard? Here. You have a quorum.
Very good. Is there a reading of the minutes this evening?
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
There's a motion by Alderman Watts, second by Alderman Large Oldnettle. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Presentation of petitions,
We have no petitions or communications at this time.
and the claims are in the hands of the alderman, I believe. Is there a motion to pay claims at this time? Alderman Speed, second by Alderman Ruben DeSellis. All those in favor of paying the city claims, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mayor's report. There is one item, and it's a resolution authorizing the purchase of real estate of 321 Sandy Street, and that is the building that we've discussed that is just to the northeast of Municipal Building, the old Neff Colvin Building. Brian, is there anything with contingency on the roof repair?
Yep, on the roof. You got insurance money for the roof, so that's going to be addressed.
Okay. We've approved that spending up to the 120, and that's what we're getting, and I'll need a motion for that building. Alderman Cook, second by Alderman Bartlett.
Be it resolved by the City Council that the acquisition of property located at 321 Sandy Street in Jacksonville is hereby approved at a purchase price of $120,000, contingent upon receiving the insurance proceeds for the repair of the roof.
Any discussion?
They are.
Any other discussion? I would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Bartlett?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Henry?
Yes.
Hannett?
Yes.
O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ruben DeSellis?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Speed?
Yes.
Watts?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item number 2 is the reappointment of Mary Watts, Sarah Robinson, and Dan Thompson to the Commission on Disabilities and Human Relations, term to expire October 30th, 2025. And is there a motion to re-up these individuals? Alderman Scott, second by Alderman Williams. All those in favor of reappointing Mary, Sarah, and Dan to the commission, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? City Clerk's report?
We have the items that were sent to you via email, the Community Development Department report, the cash receipts report, the budget report for the general fund, and revenue analysis report for the general fund for the end of October 2022. If you have any questions on those, please contact me. We'll try to get them answered for you.
Thank you very much. Any further public comment at this time?
Sorry, I'm not here to be anything further. I just want to make a note in the public comment section of the actual meeting regarding what we had discussed previously during the public comment section regarding 234 West State Street. And I would also request that, given that we were supposed to make this decision tonight, we would request that somebody on this committee make some motion or some push to have some type of a special meeting not later than next Monday in order to actually have this resolved. It's been 3 weeks since the last meeting. If we could at least have a decision within the next 7 days, and that could be furthered by you guys, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Consent agenda items tonight. Finance, IT, and personnel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 2 items tonight. The first one is a resolution authorizing payments from the Capital Improvement Fund for certain improvement projects. And the second item is a resolution authorizing payment from the general fund for services rendered.
Parks and Lakes, Alderman Large Oldham.
Thank you. We have one item, resolution authorizing the waiver of advertisement for bids and authorizing the City of Jacksonville to seek proposals for the operation of concessions at the Links Golf Course.
Very good. Planning and Public Works, Alderman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 3 items. The first is resolution authorizing the waiver of advertisement for bids and accepting proposal for the purchase of a utility vehicle for the Jacksonville cemeteries. The second item is a resolution authorizing the waiver of advertisement for bids and accepting proposal for the new columbarium for Diamond Grove Cemetery. And the third item is a resolution authorizing assignment of liens to the Two Rivers Land Bank.
And Utility, Alderman Watts.
We have one item, resolution authorizing payments from the Waterworks and Sewage Project Fund for services rendered improvement projects, and I so move.
Is there a second on the consent agenda? Alderman Large Oldham. You've heard the items under the consent agenda. Is there any you wish to pull for further discussion? Seeing none, I would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Bartlett,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Hannett,
Yes.
O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ruben DeSalis, Scott,
Yes.
Speed,
Yes.
Watts,
Yes.
and Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Very good committee reports tonight. Planning and Public Works, Alderman Scott.
All right. Our first item is the first reading of an ordinance amending the Jacksonville zoning map for property located at 750 East Chambers Street from R2 to R5 with special use, and I so move.
Is there a second? Alderman Watts.
Be it ordained that the Jacksonville zoning map for the property located at 750 East Chambers Street be amended, changing the classification to R5 Multiple Family Dwelling District from R2 One Family Dwelling District.
Discussion? I would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Williams,
Yes.
Watts,
Yes.
Speed. Scott,
Yes.
Ruben DeSalis. O'Donnell. Henry,
Yes.
Hannett,
Yes.
Cook. Bartlett.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Our second item is the first reading of an ordinance amending the Jacksonville zoning map for property located at 1108 West Morton Avenue from B3 to B3 with special use, and I so move.
Is there a second this evening? Alderman Cook.
Be it ordained that the Jacksonville zoning map be amended for the property located at 1108 West Morton Avenue from B3 Limited Business District to B3 Limited Business District with special use.
Any discussion? I would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Bartlett,
Yes.
Cook. Hannett,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ruben DeSalis. Scott,
Yes.
Speed,
Yes.
Watts,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Do we need to have a motion for emergency clause on this before I read it or after I read it?
They did request the emergency clause, I think, because of the concrete work they want to get done, so it would be the emergency clause first, so.
Motion,
Well, go ahead and read the,
Read it.
Go to 400 East Morton first.
that one is with.
has been removed.
Got it.
But you can read number 4 with the emergency clause and move the emergency clause.
The first reading of an ordinance amending the Jacksonville zoning map for property located at 3009 West Lafayette Avenue from B3 to B4 with special use with emergency clause.
So moved.
And I so move.
Aaron's moving, motioned on the emergency clause. Is there a second? Alderman Henry. The roll call will be on the emergency clause, and I would ask the clerk, please call roll.
On the emergency clause?
Yes.
Bartlett.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Hannett.
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
Odenell.
Yes.
Ruben DeSellis.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Speed.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Aaron, you just moved second reading.
I have the second reading of an ordinance amending the Jacksonville zoning map for property located at 3009 West Lafayette Avenue from B3 to B4 with special use, and I so move.
Is there a second? Alderman, nobody. Ruben DeSellis.
Be it ordained that the Jacksonville zoning map for the property located at 3009 West Lafayette Avenue be amended, changing the use classification from B3 Limited Business District to B4 General Business District with special use permit.
Any discussion? Looks like I have a new neighbor.
That came up at the planning commission.
Yeah. I would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Bartlett.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Hannett.
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
Odenell.
Yes.
Ruben DeSellis. Scott.
Yes.
Speed. Watts.
Yes.
And Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next item is the first reading of an ordinance amending the Jacksonville zoning map for property located at 1101 East Morton Avenue from PD mixed to B3, and I so move.
Is there a second? Alderman Williams.
Be it ordained that the Jacksonville zoning map be amended for the property located at 1101 East Morton Avenue, changing it from PD mixed to B3 Limited Business District.
Any discussion?
No discussion, but I asked a lot of questions before about this property, and I would like to thank Brian, because he knows how I feel about landscaping plans and making sure that's all been incorporated. So thank you very much for making sure that it's gonna have nice landscaping and look nice as an entry point coming in to Jacksonville, so thank you for that.
I would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Williams.
Yes.
Watts.
Yes.
Speed. Scott.
Yes.
Ruben DeSellis. Odenell.
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
Hannett.
Yes.
Cook. Bartlett.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Our next item is the first reading of an ordinance amending the Jacksonville zoning map for property located at 1055 and 1061 East Morton Avenue from PD mixed to B4 with special use, and I so move.
Is there a second on this property? Alderman Watts.
Be it ordained that the Jacksonville zoning map be amended for the property located at 1055 and 1061 East Morton Avenue, changing the use classification from PD mixed to B4 General Business District with special use permit.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Bartlett.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Hannett.
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
Odenell.
Yes.
Ruben DeSellis. Scott.
Yes.
Speed. Watts.
Yes.
And Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Very good. Any old business this evening? Old business.
Getting back to the gentleman from Ramel Camp, why is it not on the agenda tonight?
Because Main Street wanted to talk about it, I know.
They've had, how many months has this building been? 14.
Amend that 13.
Okay, 13.
We'll just call it a year. And now we're gonna scramble in 2 weeks to, and we're gonna make special provisions for them. It just doesn't seem really fair to these guys.
I don't have an answer, Brett.
always schedule a special meeting if you want. It could either be next Monday or whatever day you want to pick.
So if we had a special meeting, we'd be able to take action prior to listening to Jacksonville Main Street's presentation? Or would that be part of, if we had a special meeting, Jacksonville Main Street would come, then we could take some action?
They had requested the 28th. If you want to set a special meeting and tell Main Street that if they're going to want to give any kind of presentation, it has to be at that meeting, that's sufficient. And taking it one step further, and I didn't have a chance to talk with you about this, I understand what you're saying, that if a demo permit isn't issued, you can do an appeal and so forth. I anticipated what the council would be deciding would be issuing the demo permit and releasing that demo lien that we have on it, because I don't know that you want to go forward with anything on acquisition of the property without that lien there. And that's the action I think the city council has to take. Vote to release the $250,000 demo lien that we have in existence. I think that's your intent. I would assume that's your intent. But I think that's the action the council would need to take once you want to proceed with their proposal.
Would we do that at the special meeting?
Yes, you can put anything on that special meeting agenda that you want.
And I've asked this a couple times, and it's complicated, because we don't own the building, but they've had a conversation with the property owner, right? We don't own the building.
No, we do
we just
not
have a
own the
lien
building.
on the building.
Yes.
But we can still speak to the demise of the building? I mean, we can.
They have an agreement with the property owner that they can proceed with the demolition. They'll acquire the building with the release of our lien and then take it down, if that's what you approve. Am I correct?
Yes, we have a written, executed option to purchase the building from the existing owner. There is a deed sitting in escrow right now that will be released to us as soon as we tell the current owner that we want to exercise that option.
And you don't necessarily have to take action to say we're going to have a special meeting. Andy can schedule that. But it seems the consensus that that's what you want to do.
Like I said, I thought it was gonna be on tonight's agenda.
Want to do it this week? Or
What
do you
if
want to do
Main
it next
Street's not
Monday?
able to present before then?
Then you have to decide whether you want to hold up action on their request until Main Street's able to present, or go ahead and not give Main Street an opportunity to present.
I mean, are we going to get together and do this all over again and not, if we don't have all the information?
Possible.
I think, give them ample opportunity to get their thoughts together. We do it a week or tonight.
I'm okay with a week, but I think they've had a year, and nobody's worried about it until these gentlemen want, they come forward with the money and want to tear this building down, and now everybody's trying to scramble
I mean,
to hurt their plans.
I think part of it is, and I haven't spoken with either of them parties personally, but until a couple weeks ago, there was still a chance that they were gonna rehab the building.
That was contingent on us giving.
Right,
back
and
$1 million.
we didn't have the money in the TIF to give it. But up to that point, demolition really wasn't, I don't think, the forefront on anybody's hope. And I'm assuming that Main Street has said, well, now they're gonna tear it down, let's see if we can find somebody to save it, is why they've asked for 2 weeks. But I'm not sure, that's how I take it.
I was just thinking that they've had a year to be looking at this property if they were concerned about it. These guys. have
I
been
agree,
looking
no,
at
it's,
it for over a year now.
it's time to do something with it for sure.
Week from Monday, or week from today? Work for everybody?
What time?
We started early.
5:30?
Yeah, 5:30. That'll be the topic. 5 Any other old business? Any new business? Lori,
Not tonight.
you're rehabbing. Yes, Skip?
I just want to bring one thing up. A week from today is the start of the filing period for elected officials. And the final day is the 28th, which is 2 weeks from today. A week from today is the start, and 2 weeks from today is the last. The office opens at 8 o'clock and closes at 4:30.
Got her. Yeah, Don?
No?
On the what?
Electric rates.
There's been enough discussion. There was a press release that went out last week. I don't know if it's even been posted or not, but it went out last week. Already some people in town have already been receiving some letters from Ameren that the supplier is dropping the aggregation program at the end of December. We do have another program already, another aggregation contract set, but it does not begin until the end of February, March 1 if you want to call it that. The rate is 12.2 cents per kilowatt hour. Ameren's rate at the present time is 12.2375 or something like that. I'm not really aware of it. But anyway, letters will be going out to the community. If you want to stay with the aggregation program, you do not need to do anything. It's just a formality that these letters have to go out, and they'll go out. Ameren will send one out now. They'll send one out again, and then actually Constellation will be sending out a letter for anybody that wants to opt out of the aggregation program. You are not obligated to stay in the program if you can find a cheaper rate. But this rate is as cheap as we could come up with. We only had one bidder, and even the company that we were with for 13 years decided not to bid on it. So I just want to get that word out. We are going to have on the telephone, we've been getting a lot of calls, so we've actually put this information out on the phone, so when people call in, dial 1 and they're going to hear that very speech, so to speak. And if they don't like what they hear, they can always call back and talk to me.
So currently, what are we paying currently?
4.039.
So I think everybody knows that that's quite a jump, and we'll do what we can to get the best rate, but everybody's gonna feel it.
And one other thing to add to that, remember this is only your supply. It is not the delivery charges. Ameren has the delivery charges. The supply company supplies it. So this cost is only on the supply side. Ameren still got you on the other side to deliver it.
Any other new business this evening? We will, looks like we'll make a motion to go into exec. Alderman Cook, second by Alderman Scott, and we're going into exec session for property acquisition and personnel.